Yeah, my name is John Argue, and I'm the Amnesty International Coordinator for Sri Lanka in Amnesty's Canadian section. Amnesty is concerned with the remaining problem, the continuing problem of disappearances, because sometimes some people literally just are abducted by who knows who in the white van and then just disappear, and the family or friends don't know where the person's been taken or whether the person's still alive. And so Amnesty has urged the government in particular to try to provide protections for the entire population so this kind of thing just does not happen. Related to that, and a problem with the justice system, and so again we're concerned with the government. We want the government to insist that justice prevail, and so that impunity cease to exist. And by that what we mean is if there are clear groups that are suspected or accused of committing crimes or human rights violations, surely those people should be brought to trial, or those groups should be brought to trial. So impunity remains, unfortunately, a problem. And may I mention one other thing that actually I think has been a problem and that I have learned personally from Tamils in particular, but also Sinhalese, and that is the rights that people have on an economic and social level for medicine, for housing, for health, education. And Amnesty is getting involved with that kind of concern too, because the lack of right to having a house, an education, or health actually can be used in a manipulative way against a population, which has happened in the past in Sri Lanka. And I've pushed for this within Amnesty, and so it's exciting for me to realize that Amnesty now is going to take on the whole range of human rights violations, including social and economic concerns as well. So in the next year or two or three, and increasingly, we'll be hearing about that kind of concern too. And so it is a continuing problem, even though it hasn't been spoken of yet. Yes, the so-called welfare villages don't offer welfare in the most positive sense of that word to people who are there. The information that Amnesty gets, and that I've learned certainly, is that many people feel imprisoned there. They don't really have the right to move around. Parents are cut off from the children, not knowing where their children, where they are even, or even parents or grandparents of the kids may be in a different center and they can't talk to one another. If the families want to leave these welfare centers to take a trip, visit friends, do whatever, go nearby, it's just difficult or impossible to do that. And much more seriously, I think we have information about some people being assaulted. And so I mentioned when I talked of women being particularly vulnerable almost any time, but during a time of conflict in particular, it's unconscionable that in a welfare center where people are supposed to be safe and looked after, that women are abused or threatened or raped.
Especially in a welfare center that the government is running.
Particularly, exactly. Because the government has more of a responsibility, I think, than an NGO. Just some disinterested. If it's a public facility, if it's a government facility, there's an extra protection that should be there for everybody. The best example actually is to say that Amnesty has asked at least 5 times in the last 2 years for permission to have a mission to Sri Lanka. And Amnesty has not been given permission. So Amnesty itself is not allowed to go to Sri Lanka to investigate the kind of human rights violations that we argue both sides are committing. And so we make the obvious point to the government that surely Amnesty should be allowed to go there so that we can look at what's going on and report objectively about what's happening. And so that's a particular problem with Amnesty, but we've heard also that others have been kicked out. And so Amnesty has made statements about the completely inappropriate rule that NGOs and international NGOs, and journalists too, of course, are not allowed to the whole area in the north. It's unconscionable because people are not being assisted, people are not being helped, and therefore, in our language, their human rights are being violated.
And what sort of justifications has the Sri Lankan government been given to the international community as to why no one's allowed in there?
The usual statement, of which I'm aware, is security generally, and so they, dare I say, are being paternalistic. The government is claiming that it's dangerous. My God. If there are people, volunteers in international organizations who are interested and willing to help out other people in the north, surely they should be allowed to do so. If organizations spend money in Sri Lanka in defense of Sri Lankan people, Tamils and Sinhalese, surely the Sri Lankan government should be interested in having that international assistance and help and money spent in their country. And so to say that they're just in danger and the Sri Lankan government won't take that responsibility is problematic. I personally think that the government is trying to make the situation look as good as possible for what it's doing, because the government is claiming that it's providing food and medicine and supplies that people need in the north to those people. I think it's pretty clear in regard to objective reports from a range of agencies and both sides, and everybody knows there are people there who are going hungry. There are people there who don't have enough water. There are people there getting sick more quickly than otherwise would be the case if they had the appropriate supplies and medicines and if they were able to have adequate shelter at all times. They need help. The Sri Lankan government needs help to supply the help that the people really, really need. And I think the government is just denying that that help is necessary because they're arguing that they are just taking care of everything. And I think that's inaccurate and unfortunate.
What sort of things can the international community do to pressure the Sri Lankan government to open its doors so that this humanitarian crisis doesn't, get worse and blow up in everyone's faces?
I think we just have to keep at it, and I'm frustrated, I must say, because over the years, Amnesty has criticized the Sri Lankan government and many other governments around the world, and had a positive effect at different times. And Amnesty's had a positive effect in Sri Lanka in the past. May I say, with the current government, it seems that the government just does not want to listen to Amnesty so far. And so I still have that hope. I still have the hope that if enough of us around the world, the Sri Lankan diaspora, Tamils and Sinhalese, but people interested in human rights in different countries all around the world, keep stating their concern about the safety and the human rights of people in Sri Lanka, that I hope international pressure will force the government to deal positively with that situation. But I must say it's a frustrating kind of argument because we've been making it a long time. I do hope, though, that will happen soon.
The fact that they're not letting anyone in while saying that they do have these steps in place, what do you think that shows?
Well, the obvious thing is it seems they have something to hide, and darn it, that's just appalling, and I think it's irresponsible. And so Amnesty and all sorts of other human rights organizations and people around the world are just demanding that the government let us in, for goodness sake, and let us help the people who need help. And so that's the bottom line, I guess. I mean, I really believe, however frustrated I am, that if we just keep demanding, if we keep letting the Sri Lankan government and its representatives around the world know that we all are concerned and we really want to help. We're not just interfering.
Yeah.
We're not just interfering with what the government is trying to do in Sri Lanka. We're trying to identify with fellow human beings and help them.